and they would have shootouts and even have fights, physical confrontation. And when we were in the sweat lodge, he had several wounds on his body, and he would tell me, well, this one here I got from being shot at. This one here was from a stab wound, and all these different things that he would tell me. When the Treaty of 1868 was signed in June of 1868, it wasn't until August the 12th that it was ratified in the halls of Congress. But it gave the Diné the opportunity to return back to some of their homelands. Not a large portion, but a small portion of the lands that were occupied prior to 1864. And when they did, they became prey to a lot of the other people that had moved into the area. And these people were not good people. They would raid the Diné homes, and they would take off and rustle the cattle and the horses and the sheep, and that the any of the children or young women that were taking care of the livestock or being out there busy herding sheep, sometimes they would kidnap these girls and children and carry them off to the south. And it was that it was very much a way of life to some of these people that did those sort of things to the Diné. And so the government decided that they needed somebody to protect and offer to reclaim or recapture some of these people that were, or rescue some of these children and that were kidnapped, or find these livestock that were taken and stolen and rustled by these bandits and bad guys. And so my great-grandfather was one of the very first Navajo police, and it was he that was selected by the people of the community where he lived. And they did it because he was very young, very strong, very brave, and he was a good shot. And he was also very intelligent. And so it was that when he was very young, back in about 1885, or maybe even sooner than that, and their headquarters around that time was over at Keams Canyon. And the area that my grandfather took care of was south, going toward Winslow and Holbrook and even Flagstaff. And the bandits and the bad guys, the outlaws and that, the rustlers would come from the south, and then they would run off to the south, and some of the people then would they would sell what they had taken to people down in Verde Valley and even down into the Phoenix area, which was not very, there was settlers down there, but nonetheless, that's where they took their captives and sold them. And so my grandfather, when he was very elderly, when he was almost 90 years old, I used to share a sweat lodge with him. He'd make me get the sweat lodge ready, and he would, I would heat up the rock, and we would sit in there, and he would tell me stories. At that time, he was blind in his old age, and he must have thought that I was a little bit older, but I was not that old. I was only about maybe 11 or 12, and he would share these stories with me about how he was able to pursue the bandits, and how he would set up a way to rescue the children that were kidnapped, and also to take back the cattle and the horses and the sheep and the goats and that had been rustled. And they would have shootouts and even have fights, physical confrontation. And when we were in the sweat lodge, he had several wounds on his body, And he would tell me, well, this one here I got from being shot at. This one here was from a stab wound, and all these different things that he would tell me. And so he was very much a good policeman. And I've thought about it since then, you know, that he was willing to give up his pursuit of joy, happiness, confidence, and peace so that his family and his relatives and the Diné could live in joy and in happiness and in confidence and peace. And he had to put his on the line in that to make that possible. And so it was that those were the stories that I've heard and the things that I've been told.